Hi, I'm Marcus Coward, and this is Wake Up New Bedford, and I'm here with Ted Brillen. Ted, thanks again for being here.
You're very welcome, my pleasure.
We were talking about the story of the Riccardis and the Raffas, for those who are watching now. And so 2 questions to, again, set up that context. So the difference between Ma Raffas and Pa Raffas is just that for Pa Raffas, one brother, the brother who started Ma Raffas, came back from the service and then just wanted to start his own restaurant that was with the family.
Right.
Okay, great. Right. So there's no drama, really. It was just someone else was running it. You know?
There was drama, but we haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay. Okay, and then I guess my other question before you get to that is, how are the Riccardis and the Raffas related?
Jenny Riccardi, a sister, she was one of the Raffas, one of the Raffa sisters.
Oh, okay.
There were 5 brothers, 6 sisters. Am I correct, bro? And so she was obviously one of the sisters. She married Riccardi.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah.
Armin, who was pure, I'm sorry, he wasn't Sicilian. He was pure Italian, but not Sicilian. But we still accepted him, though. The family accepted him if he wasn't Sicilian. But so that relationship, you know, he worked the original Ma Raffas with Tillo, and then they you know, when they set up 2 different restaurants, I don't really remember whether they worked. Each one had its own or whatever,
sure,
but they worked together for quite some time, and then unfortunately he passed from an illness. So you know,
Rick passed?
Rick passed.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you know, Tillo ran him on his own, and then of course when Vincent started the Pa Raffas, I should say. But there was no, as far as I know, there was no conflict there.
Sure.
I don't remember there ever being. But Vincent was in the business with Tony Raffa, another brother.
Sure.
And there was some conflict there. Not you know, not like, you know.
Yeah, sure.
But it wasn't working out as well as they had hoped with them working together.
Sure. So
my father, being a very the referee in the family, he suggested that they flip a coin, and whoever won the coin toss got access to that restaurant and bought out the other.
Okay.
So they have it, and I still have the coin.
Wow.
I have the coin mounted on the wall. But yes, so they flipped a coin. Vincent won. He managed the restaurant from that point on, and Tony got his own restaurant in Fairhaven, where Sconneck is now. Now there's 240, the connector that goes right through to Sconneck. Before that road was there was a restaurant right at the end there, across from Sconneck, and that's what my Uncle Tony ran, that restaurant.
And so that was another Raffas?
That was another Raffas, just Raffas, not Ma or Pa, just Raffas.
But then that's not there anymore.
But eminent domain took him over, and he ended up opening up a restaurant, but not a Raffa name. He just took over a restaurant that was already in existence in Freetown, and I don't even remember the name of it, to be honest.
Okay.
But that was brief because I don't think it worked out for him to be there. But so at one point in time there were 4 Raffa connected restaurants. Yeah. And then in '74 when Mike opened, but he worked at Pa Raffas with me for many years. Sure. And you knew that eventually he was just going to open his own restaurant. I mean, it was in his blood. It was in our family blood. That was just, the course of events that you had to follow. Sure. And so he bought. I don't know if he bought it or originally rented it. Where it is now on Hathaway Road. It was chicken or turkey or something.
Sure.
Whatever. But he started out very small. I mean, it was just one tiny little building there, and he kept expanding. And then, of course, they had what was Rosie's. That was another restaurant that he established. It was not Italian.
Okay.
It was like New Orleans style.
Okay.
Yeah, and you would have jazz bands playing on the weekends and stuff, and it was very different.
Where's that?
Where the gas station is now.
I thought so. Yeah. Okay.
It was a restaurant there. It was a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
Beautiful building. Beautiful bar. It had like a big circular kind of bar thing in.
And then didn't Donna work there too? Maybe, or I'm not sure. I just thought I heard that. Like she was a waitress there, or
possibly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Okay.
Yeah. So that I guess it was difficult. It was difficult for him to maintain that, being that it wasn't Italian food.
Sure.
And so the cost of operating that restaurant was more. I mean, Italian food is. There's a decent. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but
Sure.
I'd say, spaghetti, meatballs, lasagna, things of that nature, pizza. I mean, you can make a profit with that kind of food.
No, it's simple. It tastes good.
Right.
Yeah,
and people like it. So
Yeah.
it's a decent way to have a restaurant.
Yeah.
When you start getting into steaks and seafood and things like that, it becomes more difficult.
Sure.
And it's just. Anyway, he gave that one up.
And so, were there other Italian restaurants in the area, or did you guys just kind of create
as a matter of
this?
fact, Ray Barbero's was probably the most prominent other Italian restaurant in Fairhaven, right on Route 6.
Okay.
And he did a thriving business. He was very successful. He was very good friends with the family. In fact, him and Tillo and him were close friends for years and years and years. So there was no conflict there.
Sure.
I mean, it was Ray was a great guy. I don't know. He passed away a few years back, but he was an older man.
So you're saying that like there was some light competition between like Pa and Ma Raffas, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, to know the family, there was always competition.
Sure.
When we have a family party and we play volleyball or whatever, it was, me yelling and screaming, and it's like, no, you got the score wrong, and you got it. It's like very competitive family.
Sure.
Very. So everything they did had some competition to it.
So how similar is the menu for Riccardi's and the Raffas? Did Mike try and come up with something new, or did he just kind of do his own thing?
I think Mike tried real hard to come up with different recipes. I mean, his mother was a fantastic cook, so he could take some of his mother's recipes, which in effect were my grandmother's recipes anyway.
Yeah, exactly. All came from the source.
Yeah. But she was a good cook, and so he kind of incorporated some of his own twists and turns to it, but it's all the same, basically it's all the same.
Sure.
It's hard to, change too much when you're making lasagna, it's got cheese and pasta.
Or the chicken parm, yeah.
But I know throughout the years, I think Mike's tried to expand the menu and be more creative than maybe the other two were, Ma Raffas or Pa Raffas. But, and I think he's done well with that. His Fairhaven restaurant has an extensive menu, which is really nice.
And that's the thing. I'm so surprised that. So New Bedford is the first restaurant, but for so long, Fairhaven was the only Riccardi's that I had known or gone to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I feel like in some ways that it's more popular than the New Bedford one, but it's the New Bedford one that I started working at. That was my first job. Would you agree, or they kind of do the same in business?
I think, as far as the building is concerned, the actual restaurant itself, the kitchen is much nicer. Everything about that restaurant is nicer. It was built as a restaurant.
Sure.
I think it was the Chowder House originally when it was built.
Sure.
And then Mike bought it. But so as far as it being set up correctly, yeah.
And when did that one open in Fairhaven?
Wow, that's an excellent question.
In the 2000s?
I would say, yeah, probably early 2000s.
Sure.
I know Gene Riccardi's going to be angry with me for not knowing the date. But,
no, sure.
But I mean, it's been there for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember as kids, but I mean, with the New Bedford location being opened in '74, it's, that one's going to have some decades on it, no matter what.
Yeah. But to say, I would say early 2000s, because I know, my father, my mom, and dad both lived in Fairhaven, not far from where that restaurant is, and they used to like to go there. My dad used to like to go there when it was the Chowder House. We went there often, and he passed in 2000, so it was after that, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I'd say, but I mean, he had the, he had the right combination of what you needed to do to get it done. So even in a shorter period of time, he's been very successful there. It's like you say, that was the only one. So how is it that you started working in New Bedford?
So I had a friend who was working there. So me and Spencer, who is another worker there, we went to school at Nazarene Christian Academy with Al's son, Elijah.
Okay.
And so we had always known Al, and Spencer was just working there as a dishwasher, and it was at Spencer's graduation party, maybe, or some party that Al was at, and it was the summer. I needed money, and he's like, "Oh, you should just come be a dishwasher, just even on the weekends. Make some good money. Make some good money." I'm like, "Okay, sure." Walked up to Al, like, "Hey, can I get a job?" Like, "Sure. All right, come in for an interview." Interviewed by a guy, and then the rest is history. I was 15, just like you. Yeah.
Well, I remember working with you. I don't know when that was, but early on.
Yeah.
I was always impressed with you. I thought you had a very nice personality.
Thanks.
Still do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, I mean, that goes into my next question of how, I mean, if like, how do they keep such, like, a consistent recruiting of young kids?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories through the years of, I mean, it's not always easy. Right now, I think there's enough applicants to keep the ball rolling nicely. But during COVID, it was a real challenge.
Really.
Which is part of the reason why he got me back in there, because it was like, hey, we could use some help. Can you give us a hand?
Sure.
But I don't know. I mean, I see that stack of applicants that in the office there, and it's there's plenty there to pick from. So I don't think they have too much difficulty with that. But, but it wasn't always easy. I mean, I know the early days when you just making ends meet, you can't offer somebody exorbitant pay.
Exactly.
So you got to kind of hope that people are willing to work for minimum, which I guess that still holds true, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people working for minimum.
Absolutely.
I do a little bit on that.
So what, is it just because Mike asked you to come back is why you're here? Or like what still attracts you to the restaurant industry?
That's a good question. I mean, one, Mike has always been absolutely marvelous to me throughout my life. I mean, Mike has always been very helpful to me in whatever I tried to do. So, when Mike asks me to do something, it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to give it my best shot, you know, because he's, not to say I owe it to him, but I mean, I would feel uncomfortable saying no. So I do it, and I mean, I don't, what I have for my own business with cranberries isn't so overwhelming that I can't, work a little bit.
Sure.
And a little extra cash is always nice. And nobody has a problem with that.
Sure.
So it works out. It works out for both of us, I guess. I mean, he's glad to have me there, and I'm glad to be there. So.
Do you think there are any plans to open up another Riccardi's or another Raffa's?
I mean, we've been on vacation with Gene and Mike, which is fantastic. They're great to be on vacation.
I can imagine.
With.
Yeah.
Mike is gee, you think we should? Yeah, let's do it. Everything is, let's just go.
Well,
let's
why not?
So we've had conversations about this many times, and I think at one point he would like to have franchised, and really gone into it big time.
Wow.
But for one reason or another, that didn't happen. but I know we talked about it, so it was in his mind to do that.
Sure.
And I think he's thought about trying to maybe even just like package up lasagnas or whatever with the Riccardi name on it, and do that nationally or whatever.
Sure.
He's had some ideas to do certain things to expand out, but I mean, he did have 3 restaurants going at one time, and that's a lot.
Sure.
It's a lot. He handles it well, but it's gotta keep you awake some nights with all the refrigeration units that could break down at any time.
Sure. And so, with the future of Riccardi's and Raffa's, do you guys still plan to keep it in the family? Or
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I know his. He has relatives, his children, that are part of it.
Sure.
And will probably continue to be part of it. Even his grandkids now. In fact, he just told me yesterday that one of his granddaughters are going to be doing the catering.
Yeah.
She's going to get into that. So
I was curious about that. Like, if his kids, I've never, obviously I've known Mike for years, but so he does have kids clearly, and then grandkids. But were they ever involved in Riccardi's?
Not directly.
Sure.
No. But his son-in-law, he's got a daughter, Gina, and she's married to Mike Camacho, who is the manager at Fort Haven. And so, it is family, not his daughter, but his son-in-law. And I know, like I say, there's other members of the family that he wants involved in the business. So that, I guess, he's still young. He's about my age. I won't give away his age.
No, he's still active. Yeah, he's very active.
Very, very active.
Yeah, for
Sometimes I wonder, it's like, wow, where does he get this energy?
Yeah.
But he is very, very active. So, I expect he'll be around for quite some time yet. But that is his plan, is to, I don't think he would ever think about selling out.
Sure.
It's going to stay in the family.
I would hope so.
Which, and to be honest, the best way to keep it what it is, a legitimate Italian restaurant, is to keep it in the family. Because you sell out to somebody else, and God knows what they're going to do with it. But
yeah, it would be hard to manage that same standard.
Yes.
And so, ever since your grandmother is no longer with us, unless she's like 150.
Yeah, no, she's been gone for quite a while.
No, yeah. So once she passed, then did that tradition of having family meals still get passed down to you guys?
Well, yes. My mother, we had a nice house that I grew up in. It was a good sized house. So my mother, every Sunday, it was pretty much open house. Anybody that wanted to come could come, and we would, my wife would cook most of the meals with my mother. Okay. Which was great, because then my wife learned how to cook meals like I always had, which was perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that tradition maintained itself, and now, it's a little bit lost now, because now we're going to 3rd generation, and it's just not as possible to do that anymore.
Sure.
But we still, my daughters come over almost every week. Monday night we have the whole family come over for Monday night dinner. And we've done that for years and years and years. My cousin comes over, Pa Riccardi. He comes over on Mondays, and he's invited every week. He's my closest, as close to a brother as I have.
Sure.
Is Patrick. And we try to maintain that. Keep the family tight and all, having parties and stuff. But it gets more and more difficult as the generations. My grandmother, Sunday was go to Nona's house every Sunday. Unless you were dying of something,
sure,
you were expected to be there. Not that it was a problem. The food was fantastic. All your cousins were there. It was family. In its best.
Sure.
And so, my mom tried to keep that going for as long as possible, and she did. But now it's difficult. It's difficult.
So now, as far as for lessons, or maybe legacies that you want to leave for your kids and grandkids, out of these like 4 things, what would you say is your focus to try and leave them? Is it food and the love of food in the restaurant? Is it art? Is it your cranberry bog? Or something we haven't even talked about yet is investing?
You know, I've tried to influence them with maybe not forcing them to say, you know, I want to see you invest, but at least they are well aware of what works and what doesn't, and how, you know, you can set yourself up for retirement and be comfortable, or just not pay attention to any of it and suffer through it. You know, I've always imparted that knowledge to them, whether they've, you know, absorbed it all or not.
Sure.
Is yet to be determined.
Yeah.
But and even my grandkids, the same thing. You know, I mean, whenever I have an opportunity to talk to them about it, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to them, but on the other hand, it's like, I want you to be aware that, you know, the compound interest working in your favor as opposed to against you is the way to go. So, you know, yeah, that's important to me. That's important. You know, the cranberry bogs, I mean, to answer which one,
please.
That business is difficult. You know, my daughter wants to maintain the bogs and keep them going and all, but you know, that's a big challenge. So, you know, to say, you know, if you love somebody and you say, well, this is going to be a lot of hard work, you know, it's like, but she wants to do it, so I'll keep teaching her what to do. You know, I mean, at some point in time, she may say, hey, Dad, you're right. This is not worth the effort. But, but it's been a good business to me, so, you know, I can't really say, you know, it's the wrong thing to do. But But as far as cooking and you know, art and all, my grandkids, some of them have artistic talent, and I try to do that with them as often as possible and promote that, and, you know, keep that going, because I think that's important. In cooking, we've taught several of the grandkids, you know, just outright give them lessons on how to cook. You know? And it's like, okay, I'm going to show you how to do this, and then you're going to do it for us. You know, and that's worked out nicely. And they seem to enjoy it. You know, I mean, it's good that they have some knowledge of cooking. And my wife does the same, you know, I mean, as far as teaching them how to cook certain meals and traditional Italian meals. You know, I mean, you got to keep that ball rolling.
You really do.
There's a meal, and I'm not sure I have the Italian correct, but it's made of, it's like a stew with chicken, tomato, onions, and excuse me, Spizzadello. I think that's how my grandmother used to say it. Don't know if that's correct, but it was this, and it's really good. I mean, it's just a good hearty meal, and we make that often, and every time we make it, everybody's like, oh my God, this is so good. So everybody wants to learn how to cook it, and we show them. So, but that's one of the things that my mom had a few special meals that were always, you know, always good.
And so these family meals, did it just mean a lot to your family, or would you say that it's an Italian staple?
You know, I want to say that just about anybody I've ever talked to about Italian food, I've never run into anyone that said, I don't really like Italian. You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
You know, I mean, it's like, oh, I make this meal, and it's like, oh, that sounds good. You know, I mean, Italian food is good. You know, it's easy to make people happy with Italian food, so it works out. But I do enjoy cooking, so it's all part of the
It kind of goes hand in hand. People want to eat it. You're happy to cook. And everyone kind of likes Italian food, so it's just like, all right.
Well, you know, I mean, I do catering jobs for Riccardi's, and I always tell people the same thing. It's like delivering flowers. You know, you show up with Italian food, and everybody's happy to see you.
Absolutely,
It's a good thing. It's a nice feeling. You know? Food is a primary part of what we are. You know.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
And so, what was your favorite part? Now rewinding, when you were working back at Pa Raffas with Mike Riccardi, then what was your favorite thing doing in the restaurant?
I would say, I like preparing the more complicated meals. You know, being more of a cook than Mike was extremely good. Not to say he couldn't do all of it, because he did, but Mike was really good at running the pizza oven and making pizzas, and he was considerably faster at it than I was.
Okay.
So that was what he would usually do. He still does it.
Yeah, he does.
He still does it on Friday nights in Fairhaven, right? But that requires, you know, a lot of concentration, and you got to be quick. And I'm not as quick as he was at it. So I enjoyed making more elaborate meals and doing that sort of thing. That's what made me happy, you know. It's still the way I feel. When I worked at, you know, as a chef and all, I was a sauté chef. You know, that was
sure.
Yeah, I like doing that. You know, I don't want to just drop French fries in the fryer like you know, that was an interesting part of my life. You know, learning how to cook really more elaborate cooking. You know, more. I enjoy that.
And so, if you were going to open up a restaurant right now, would it not be Italian food? Would it be similar Italian food to Riccardi's or Raffa's, or would it be your own spin on Italian food?
I think it would be my own spin on Italian food. I mean, you got to have the basics because that's what people expect. But I think I would like to be more creative, with, you know, maybe more like Northern Italian meals, more complicated meals. You know, more because Sicilian cooking is a lot of tomato, a lot of, you know, tomato sauces and things of that nature. Good food,
yeah,
but not as sophisticated.
Sure.
And I think I would just my personality, I would tend to be more into the sophisticated aspects of it. But and I would probably expand into other areas, do some French stuff and, you know, whatever, because I enjoy that.
Yeah, sure.
But the basics would be Italian, because that's, you know, what I've learned and lived my life, you know. And people like it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to open a restaurant, you know, let's face it, you got to keep the people happy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's. But you know, at this stage of my life, there's very, very little chance I would open a restaurant. If one of my kids wanted to, one of my daughters wanted to open a restaurant, I think that would be fun.
Yeah,
you know,
you could definitely help out.
It's like, oh, Dad, you here again? You know, it's like,
you'd be like, do you want my help or not? You know,
I'm going to help you whether you like it or not. Yeah.
And you have considerable experience with it. Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
That would be my argument.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in the Riccardi's Raffa story, do you feel like you left anything out as we close up this interview?
Well, the only thing I did leave out was Mike has a brother, Dave Riccardi, who ran the Blue Point in Acushnet for years and years. I don't know when they bought that restaurant, but I mean, 20, maybe 30 years. They ran that. He and his wife Lisa ran that restaurant, and it was more not an Italian restaurant. It was more seafood, American food kind of thing.
Okay.
But he had formal training also, so he was capable of cooking anything.
Sure.
And she was a pastry chef.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, between the two of them, and it worked out. You know, it worked out very well for him. He ran the kitchen, she ran the dining room, and they had a very successful. My wife worked there for quite a few years. Very nice restaurant. You know, they had a very steady clientele, and that's you know, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, nice.
Same old people coming in every single week. You know, it's like, yeah, good to see you.
And leaving satisfied every time.
Every time. Yeah. That was a very nice restaurant, but part of the Riccardi clan, you know, but still not an Italian restaurant.
Sure.
But yeah, it's, and there's been a few, you know, branches off, you know, where they tried to, you know, some of the cousins having bakeries and things of that nature, but the you know, the mainstay was the Raffa Riccardi restaurants.
Yeah.
You know, and I expect they'll be around for quite some time.
Me too.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Right.
Yeah. You know, the thing about working in restaurants too is that if you work there as a kid, and as a teenager, you can always go back and get a job part-time. You're retired, you say, hey, I think I'll just go back and do a little something.
That's what I'm doing right now too.
Yeah, they're always welcome to, you're welcome to be back, and they always, so it's a good thing to, for any kid to say, hey, you get a job in a restaurant. It's gonna work out for you. Short term, long term, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's pretty much the story. It's an interesting story.
It is. Yeah. No, there's a lot of pieces and events, and like I was telling you before, when people have rumors or just pieces of the story, then they can just take it and run with it. But I'm glad you were able to set the record straight, and we have it from one of the family members.
I'm sure that there's been stories along the way. Yeah, but I mean, I've been there my whole life. So,
yeah, exactly.
My mom worked there. It's. In fact, I met my wife there. She worked at Pa Raffas.
Yeah.
That's where I met her. So it's all good.
Well, Ted, thanks for sharing the story.
You are very welcome. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure for me to tell it.
No, and so for everyone who's interested, I'm excited for you to watch this interview. You heard it from the source, and enjoy the interview. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.